Hi everyone, welcome back to Chinspinchats, episode 4. Today I'm joined by Simon Whitehead, aka Ferret Boy. Simon, thanks for coming on, mate.
It's my pleasure.
It.
No, been looking forward to this one.
So basically, Simon, I want to basically see if we can explain to people a little bit about what you do as a profession and a hobby and essentially a pastime.
Yeah. Well, I'm a rabbit controller, modern day rabbit controller, and I've been quite lucky really. I've made a profession out of my passion and out of my hobby. But as you might understand, if something's your hobby and then you make it your profession, you've got to do things to keep your keenness and your enthusiasm, because at the end of the day, it's just like a job. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. And if you speak to people that do what I do for a hobby, they can't understand or associate with the problems you have mentally on keep going with your job, because to them, they just look forward to going out and doing it for a few hours. Whereas, you know what it's like when things are against you, the weather's against you, the animals are against you, you've had a big argument, you don't want to be there. You still got to do it. Yeah. So when you sell your soul for silver, you got to dance with the devil, don't you?
Yeah. So basically, about the levels and stuff, is it like containing a certain level? Is it sustaining levels?
It's just management. And I think this is where people get a little bit sort of lost, because management can be zero tolerance, or it could be just, skim a few off the top and we'll see a few, but, take them away. But a lot of it is understanding about how nature works, because especially when you're dealing with a rabbit, nature works in funny ways, and with the rabbit being a prey species, we're not the only people after it. So you got to take that into account as well. And then in this day and age, we've got diseases everywhere, and man building hotels and motorways and pressure. Well, we did have until we had a pandemic, and then and that affects it as well. So you've got to do bits of everything, and that's where the media comes into it as well.
Yeah. So it's weird that you said that about diseases and stuff like that. I remember I've been up stand-up before, and is it mixie again? Is it myxomatosis or something like that?
Myxomatosis, but there's a new one now, which just like, it's just a hemorrhagic disease, what basically just leads to death.
Yeah.
So they've got everything against them, and then on top of that, we've got thermals now and night vision, and there's just no escape. So
that's it.
The world's a different place.
Right. So do private people come to reach you for jobs essentially, or
whoever's going to pay me bill? Basically. I'm not fussed. It could be government organisations, pest control companies. I do a lot of subcontracting for pest control companies. I do a lot of ferreting days where I take people out. I love them because there's no pressure there. You just catch a few, just cook a few, and have the crack on the hill. And then some places I just do for the fun of it. So like if I'm going out and I've got a photographer with me on a film crew or whatever, then I don't care. I'd rather do that somewhere where I'm not being paid.
Yeah.
Because then the customer's not getting the arse for you then, because he wants you there to do your job, and it's fair enough if they're paying you to do it. Then you've got to do it. But I do like the bits, especially now I'm getting old. I like the bits with no pressure.
That's the best way. So how you just mentioned there about the ferrets. So what essentially, have you got a number of different styles that you use? So say, for instance, do you go out with a gun? Do you use your dogs? Do you use your ferrets? Or is it an accumulation of it all? Or
I prefer to use my dogs and nets, because then I'm harvesting clean rabbits. Clean rabbits are worth a lot more money.
Yeah.
It's quiet. It's unobtrusive. Nobody knows you're there. It's more effective. It's more efficient. And I just love it. We do shoot. We trap. We drop box, fencing up. You've got night vision. You've got thermals. Depends where you are. Like in a few weeks, I've got to go on some sort of island somewhere and do some stuff, and we've got to take everything because we don't know what we're walking into. So whereas tomorrow when I'm out getting some content for my Shooting Times article, it's all going to be relaxed. So I'm just going to take probably one of my lurchers, Tony, and a pup, and I've got about 10 baskets of long nets, and we're just going to blitz an old railway line. So it's going to be good tomorrow.
That's pretty cool. So what methods, like so say a regular day for you, right? As you see it tomorrow, you're going out, you're doing your article for the shooting times. What would that entail? So you'd get up, you'd get your bag set essentially. Yeah.
Well, it's like surfers, because everything's changed with the pandemic and me moving back. So like for instance, tomorrow I got the truck ready today. And so I've got all the long nets in the back, make sure everything's in there, all the ferret finders, all the collars, all the digging equipment, everything's in the car. And then in the morning, what I'll do, I'll just get up and do the dogs, stick them in the truck, pick which ferrets I'm going to take, stick them in the truck, and then get over to where I'm going. And then I've done where I'm going tomorrow. I've done it before. So I like to read a rabbit warren like a fisherman would read a river. So you know where the fish are, where they're hiding, and I'm like that with a rabbit warren. I'm a bit anal, really. You know, I like to sort of think about it. And this is where I think over the years, I'm just slightly different, slightly mad, but it's because you're always thinking about it. So when we talked earlier, when we were on about mindsets and stuff, your mindset is very similar to like what you do. You know, it's physically and mentally brutal. You know, it's not what, you know, people think you're just going out there cashing a few rabbits. Well, you can kick a football, but you wouldn't Wembley on Sunday, would you?
Exactly,
you know what I mean? So you've got that side of it. But when you're looking at the rabbit warren and how it's designed and how the hierarchy of the rabbits are, after all these years and years and decades of doing it, you sort of get a sense of it, an instinct. So, you know, I'll suss that out. So tomorrow I know what I've got to do, divide, dissect, and then we'll be working sort of between 6 and 8 ferrets tomorrow. I've got a few friends with me. So there's plenty of hands, and then we'll just systematically go from one end right down to the next. And it's quite funny because when you put the ferrets in and the ferrets I'm working, I sort of know when they've had enough, because you can tell by just how things are happening, and then to move on a little bit. And if it was a big paid job, we'd fill all the holes in, and then we can see what opens up again. But you know, this is just a place I sort of keep them down for the farmer. So we won't be filling the holes in tomorrow. I just want to catch as much as I can tomorrow, because my friend what's helping us, he keeps like eagles and birds of prey, and they're all going to him. So I want to. I shy away from like numbers when we do our articles, but I do want to catch a lot tomorrow for him, because I want to get you know, a load down,
a big bag essentially,
and that'll be that. And then afterwards, I mean, we're all going back to us for a palm tomorrow.
So I had my first one the other day, actually. Fucking blew my mind.
It'll sit in you like for a week.
I was naughty, like. I would say
you wouldn't be having one of them before fights.
No. It's super interesting. I mean, like, obviously, it's good, as you just said there, you know, none of it's kind of wasted. You know, someone's going to your friends' birds of prey, you cook it yourself. I mean, that for a lot of the people, that's a good way for people to rationalize what's actually happening, because a lot of people are against hunting, you know. I mean,
over the years, I got a big box in the police station of death threats and everything else, because they just see you enjoying you killing animals. Well, I'm making right. Bones, I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I mean, you love what you do. You know, I just love it. And I've traveled all over the country and everything doing it. And I've been out and I just can't get enough of it. I'm like, when I grew up in Borough, you sort of, like, everybody goes off. You know, I started ferreting when I moved to Suffolk. And all my friends, they went off and they got married, they had kids, and, you know, they went shooting, they went fishing, or they went motorbike riding or whateve. I've just kept with rabbits, and I just can't get enough of it. But because of doing that, when we started on like people attacking what we do, you then had a quick lesson in how to present what you do and how you do it and the words you use. So when you start to get attacked, I mean, I used to be wheeled out through the press. You know, somebody's attacking the hunting with dogs. You know, go and get Whitehead. Just like stick him in a little trolley, wheel him out. Because they can't argue against what I do and how I do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm managing rabbits. It has to be done. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do have to go, but there's no wastage. So anybody's moral compass has been rectified. So the moral dilemma is you're taking an animal's life, right?
Yeah.
I detest it when people take animals' lives and waste them.
No, that's one.
No point. Yeah, no point.
There's no point. Exactly.
So with the rabbits, everything bar bits of the fur is used. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd love to be able to you know, people to use proper fur again. Mm-hmm. It's not Vogue, is it? You know, you imagine going around in a Snoop Dogg's rabbit fur jacket. You just get slapped down. So but everything is used. So if they don't go on for food, we're using them. The bits we don't use, the dogs and ferrets use. Birds of prey. And then when people, especially when we're doing the shows, you know, you'll be there and you'll be doing your stuff, and afterwards they'll all come over for a chat, and you'll always get somebody, oh, it's cruel, right? You know, and they're stood there in the leather shoes, the leather jackets, they're eating a burger that's come from whatever, but you know, and you think, right, what's cruel about it? And then you explain to them that, you know, I'm not using chemicals, I'm not using poisons, I'm not using toxins, I'm not killing any indiscriminate other animal that I don't want to kill. You know, I am controlling rabbits. So as soon as, you know, they hit a net, the second they hit my hand, they're dead. It's a millisecond. And then you explain to them why you do it like that, because if you muck about with any meat, the body reacts and it turns to meat.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got a respect for an animal, quite funnily enough, you know, people can't get their head around that neither, that how you can respect something so much because you're controlling them.
Yeah.
Well, when you've had your arse spanked that many times by rabbits, when you thought you've got it right and you just got it so wrong, you do respect them, and then that respect comes through in how you conduct yourself. So by doing it like that, and then explaining to them that it's food, it's got more protein than any meat we have, it's got less fat than any meat we have, but people won't eat it because it's a rabbit, because it's you know,
it's a pet,
you know, and we're living in a day and age where there's so many human emotions on animals that we're losing the balance between what is an animal and not. You just look at people with the dogs. You know, they think the children are not. They're not children. I mean, I love my dogs, but they're not children. The dogs. And we've just got to redress the balance, and you're not going to win. And when I was younger, you're trying your hardest to convince people, don't give a fuck. Now, I don't give a shit if they like what I do, like me or don't like me, but I just want to make them understand and give them the information so they can have an opinion, and then they can do what they want with the opinion.
For sure.
You know, and that is, and in a way, I do quite like it, because it's like do you know what it's like when somebody says to you, you can't do it? You know, well, I've had that all my life, and it's a little bit of where I've come from that I think, well, I'm going to do it. You know, and when you're dealing with press and media and people, and you can almost it's like you're playing a game with them. You know, and you can manipulate what they're thinking just by what you're saying, and you're peeing out your palm of your hand, because how can they argue about what I'm doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, but it's not always been like that, because you know it's like human nature, and a lot of people who do what I do in different circles, they all get a bit macho and puff the chest out, and that puts people's backs up.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got to play them at a game, and it is a game. So it is quite good. But over the years, when you know everything's progressed, it has been a steep learning curve.
Yeah, for sure. So just for anyone listening, you know, when you said so straight away, the out the hole in the bag, have you got, I mean, obviously I've never done this. It's something I'm interested in for sure. I'm always camping, I'm always out in the wilderness anyway, but it's just like, Which way do you then kill them? Have you got a certain method? Have you got is it like a bludgeon kind of thing? Is it a knife or what? Or
No, it's my hands.
with your hands?
It's my hands. It's my
Nice.
hands. You know, they basically, if I'm using nets, long net is a long net. Purse net goes over little holes. So I'll put the ferrets in. And for those that don't really understand ferreting, it's the ferrets are bred like the horses are bred, like dogs are bred. You know, for good prey drive, working ability, social skills, size, color, everything all else. So when we put little collars on them called ferret finders, so we know where they are, and we got a little box. So if I've got to dig them out, we got to dig them out. Put them in, and it's a flight or fight. So with a predator against a prey, 6 times out of 10, the rabbit's going to get out of there. There's lots of things you can do to make them come out. There's lots of things you can do. They're going to make them stay in there. But as soon as they hit that net, it's basically your hand is on the shoulder of the rabbit. And it's like taking the bottle off the lid off your Budweiser bottle. You just caress the neck and move your fingers like that, and it's dead. It's literally, you're not doing the karate chop, getting a big priest out, because you're bruising the meat.
You want to keep it as fresh. It's
got to be as clean, because as soon as that rabbit sees meat and it's dispatched, it's not a rabbit no more. It's a valuable source of food worth £2.50. You know, you've got to think about the Queen's Egg.
That's it.
And that's what, again, that's what people can't get around, because they're growing up with this image of you picking a rabbit up by the back legs and doing the karate chop. And people may do that, and people have got. I mean, I've seen all sorts of ways people do. But there's only 2 really good ways, and that is, you know, chinning it or just necking it. But the more, I mean, we try to work out. I wish I had £1 for every rabbit I've done it to. It's been nearly as much as I've paid for my ex-missus's horses over the years. But it's just natural, you know. And when people ask me how I do it, I just show them a little film, because I can't describe how you do it, because as soon as the rabbit's in, it's dead, you know. And I know we don't like using that word dead, but it's dead. So you know,
it's funny that you mentioned the ferrets. I just remembered a mad story for when I was a kid. Obviously, all my mates, you know, when you're a young lad coming up, especially where we are, when, you know, there's loads of countryside around us and stuff. My mate had a couple of ferrets, big white lovely ferrets, and one of them freaking raped the other one. It's like absolutely savagely raped it, and it had like some like reaction to the raping, and it was like had this like, I don't know if this is something you've ever seen before in ferrets. I mean, and it had like this huge, I don't know if it was like reaction, but it used to have like a big like swelling basically after that, where it used to have to drag it about. It was absolutely savage. Like I've never seen that before.
At this time of year, we're now starting to breed. Unfortunately, when ferrets breed, it's not the calmest of. You know, it's rare.
It was raped and raped it for sure.
And it is, and that affects you know, how we work them, and how, because I prefer to use the hobs, which are the male ferrets. Can't be asked with the little females, the gills, because I like to work the bully, not be bullied. So when I was younger, you used to be obsessed about getting these little gills and this and that, but the rabbit used to kick the fuck out of them. And because that's how your mind changes. You work, you then, it's all about efficiency. That's how I work these big hobs. But I have them all neutered. Because come January, when them balls drop, it's fucking gaga. You know, it's like a 15-year-old in a pub, you know, on a Friday night. Its head is like this. Not bothered about work. You know, he'll look busy. He'll go through the rabbit warren, and he's dragging in balls, and all he wants to do is one thing. So they're not as efficient, and the gills are the same. You know, when they come into season, everything swells up. And you can have problems with that as well. So I have like vasectomized ferrets, what take them out of season, but I don't breed from them. And it goes all, you know, it gets all a bit much. And then of course, you're always bringing new stock on, because it takes a couple of years for them to really get into
mature,
it. Yeah, and some aren't going to make it. So you can breed, like I've bred ferrets decades, but some of the times they're just pure shit. You know, you get just something's just not right, and it's just like, oh fucking hell, I've kept this for 6 months, and it's just like garbage. But it happens. It just and then you just got to crack on. But yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, it's
when I was younger and growing up, and everybody had these ferrets. Everybody's had a ferret. Everybody knows something about ferrets. More than hanging off the fingers and stuff. And it's just like, how can it be so hard? You know, but it is.
It's a crazy thing. So how many? So I say for now, for instance, at this moment in time, like, do you own a big number of ferrets, or do you get ferrets brought to you to breed, or do you like keep them yourself?
Basically, I keep between 20, 25 at the minute. I have had as much as 30 and 35 because I've just spent 35 years in Suffolk.
Yeah.
And that's a bit deep sandy warrens, and you're using a lot of ferrets and you're doing a lot of digging, and they're not living. The average lifespan for a pet ferret might be 8 years, but mine are 5 because they're just getting grafted and grafted. So I'm keeping them, and because I neuter me hubs, I keep a few hubs entire so I can breed from them. And then I've got people who I know around the country where I'll bring ferrets and take ferrets. And there's a fella in Whitehead called Bobby Merrin. He's a fucking legend, you know. He's 75, 76 now, or 77, still prancing around ferreting, you know, putting his deer stalker on side, breeds the best ferrets in the world. And a lot of mine over the last 20 years are infused with his. And then what I try and do is just, if I don't keep them, they go to places where I know where they are, but I don't sell them.
Yeah.
Because what happens now is, like, you know, somebody's like, can I buy a ferret off you? And I'll say, yeah, this one doesn't work too well, but you can have it. You know, have it. Fucking then they'll get, oh, this is one of Whitehead's ferrets. They'll shag the arse of it and make a fortune. Then when they don't work, they'll go, shit. And that is one of the problems now with social media.
Yeah.
You know, I try and duck out. I mean, so you need social, it's a necessary evil, but there's nothing, I mean, private life on there. Fucking good job, really. But you know, if you look at, I mean, I remember, I mean, you probably won't remember this, but I remember before the internet. You know, I was working doing this before the internet. And when the hunting forums and all them forums started, they wanted us to help because, you know, we could write, we could take pictures, and you know. And then, of course, the monkeys started, didn't they? There's a famous quote saying that the scale of evolution is you could have like 1,000 monkeys and give them computers, and over so many years they can write the work of Shakespeare again. But the internet's proved that wrong. And I always love that quote because it's right. But they all get on there because everything's anonymous.
Yeah.
And then have a little pop at you.
And then get away with it, essentially.
And I tell you what, we talked earlier on about antis and this and that. You get more jip from within the circles you are.
Yeah.
And nowadays, when I'm doing my demonstrations, there's always, I come out with all these little sayings. I hear these sayings, and I come out, and there's one, it's a McGregor saying. They all want to do what I do till they have to do what I do. And this is what this is, and I just smile now.
He stole that, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because it's all recycled. It's all recycled. But he basically got that from I think it might have been C.T. Fletcher, and it was everybody wants to be a beast. Everybody wants to be a beast until it's time to do what a beast does. You know? And it's right. I mean, everyone wants to see a fucking hell. I'm going to make fucking all this money from going out and doing something I love. Like, I want to go out fucking ferreting all the time and but I want to be the dog's bollocks in this, and it's the same in fighting. Everyone wants it, and until it comes to to actually doing it, you know what I mean? So it's
and also, it makes me sort of smile now because I'm like, because I've got a bit of a reputation for being a grumpy fucker. Surprisingly enough, when I'm doing shows, because you sort of concentrating on stuff.
Do you mind if I spot this up, Sam?
No. So they don't understand that when you got to do demonstrations in arenas, you can't piss about, and then things are going on around you. So you got to be sort of professional and whatnot. Whereas nowadays it's getting a bit easier because, as I said, you just that's what we do. And we've done it for that long. You know, it just brushes off, but they don't realise what goes into it. And I think it's a sad state of affairs in all aspects of our lives now, that everybody wants everything now.
Yeah.
And they don't realise
what actually goes
into it, you know, and mentally, how I've been for a lot of years is quite similar to your world, because you've got to sort of be fit.
Yeah, it's a taxing thing along the. That was going to lead us on to what I was basically going to ask you next. Was it's for people who are not experiencing what you do. How long, say, are you essentially in the field? How long are you out per session per hunt?
When we go out for a day, you're going out for a day. So when I've moved back up there, my calves have been hurting like fuck, because Suffolk's as flat as a pancake.
Yes.
And it is flat. And a couple of years ago, we did a walk, me and my mate Ben, who's out with us tomorrow, we did a walk for charity, for mental health charity. There was meant to be 5 people doing it, me and 4 other people. We're going to do the Cleveland Way.
Yeah.
And they were all like faffing it. They all dropped out one by one, left with me. And Ben said, well, if you do it, we'll never see you again because you'll get lost. So he'll do it. He'll come, but we'll do it differently. We'll do it in 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. That's 120 miles in 3 days. Yeah. So we're all walking and doing this. But of course, I'm doing my training because I was still in Suffolk then.
Yeah.
On the flatlands. Well, the Cleveland Way's up and down these bloody mountains. You know. So I learned then that, you know, things have to change. And now I'm up here. When we're out and you're out all day. So you're out from you're in the fields 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock. And if you're carting stuff about and putting nets down, picking nets up, and you're running about because you're doing rabbits and you're digging. I mean, digging is an art in itself. It does take its toll, and this is why I'm always like paranoid about hydration, because you get to 1 o'clock and a lot of people are falling. They're making stupid mistakes. They're tripping over. They can't think straight. The simplest task, like just look at something and getting the phones out. And that side of things, people underestimate. Yeah, because as soon as you start making those wrong decisions, then things can quickly go wrong. And it's a fact, people have died doing ferrets. Yeah. I've been out with people who broke their legs and ankles and stuff because they're just making the wrong choices. And if you're digging a hole and you're on your toe, and this is where unfortunately people have died. If you imagine you're digging a hole and you get stuck in it upside down, which is what happens. It's goodbye Vienna. So you've just got to be careful. Yeah. So fitness is the mental strength you need to do it. For me, isn't the rabbiting. The rabbiting's a release. The mental strength for me is the whole world around you, how they portray what you do, people wanting to do what you do. At the end of the day, it's not rocket science, you know what I mean? But if you think about it differently, and you have to think about it differently, for what I do, especially the media side, just makes it easier. But again, it's not rocket science,
So I don't know if this is a thing, but has any ferrets have you ever had to dig ferrets out of a hole to try and get them back off there?
Hundreds of times.
I was going to say, so what's that? Are they sleeping down there, or are they just staying down there?
A lot of people think when they go down there, you ferrets ate a rabbit that's fell asleep. No, it's not, because because after we filmed ferrets, we put ferret collars on ferrets and little things, and we know what's going on under the ground.
Through a tracking device, essentially.
Well, we got ferret finders on them, so you know where they are. But with some of the filming I've been doing, we filmed the ferrets and the rabbits under the ground as well, so we know exactly what's going on, and it's all to do with the prey drive of the ferrets. Yeah. So the rabbits got 2 choices: balls, what stays underground. There's a big warren that can run about because they're very canny, so they'll because they're natural predator, the stoat or the weasel. With it being a wild animal, it'll be too much effort and energy to keep running about. It's like if I said to you, there's your meal, but you've got to run around the block 10 times, you're going to go, no, it's not worth it. And that's what happens when we're ferreting. It's that natural instinct. So when a rabbit decides it wants to stay, what the rabbit has got in the back end has got very little nerves. It can't feel a great deal. So with the rabbit pipes being the size of the rabbit, it just simply goes to an end, protects its neck, hunches down, sticks its arse up. And if it was a stoat or a weasel, it'll have a little scratch and then, oh, fuck this, it's too much work. And then it'll go away. But with ferrets won't, because you've just bred the drive into them.
So they'll just keep attacking.
They'll just keep trying to make it turn, and then they'll be doing this and doing that and trying to get over and try and get under. And if that rabbit's going to stay there, it's going to stay there. So we get the ferret finder out. And I'm like Imelda Marcos with her shoes with my spades. I've got loads of them. But generally, there's 3 different types. I've got Excalibur, which is my 7.5 kilo spade for cracking through stuff. And then a few smaller spades. So then you dig where they are.
So more delicate kind of.
Yeah, you find out where they are, you put a probe, so you're not going to. But the ferrets are pretty good. They sort of notice the skies are opening up and back off a bit. And then you could have like 1 rabbit, 2 rabbits, up to 3 or 4 rabbits. And then you just fill them in and then crack on.
So does any kind of, have you ever put a ferret in and there's been somebody else in there that they've kind of had like a interruption with? Like say, for instance, I don't know, like any other kind of...
Yeah, we've had foxes, mink, cats, owls. Cats are the worst. Hedgehogs, don't see a lot of them now, but we used to have a lot of hedgehogs. We used to dig to a lot of hedgehogs because the ferrets couldn't fathom out what they were. There's loads of stuff that lives under, and this is another beauty of ferreting and why we don't gas, or I don't like gas, and it's because we're only going to affect the rabbits. If we gassed it, everything around it, from the invertebrates to the vertebrates, would die. So
what happens if you overcome, like if you end up in a situation like that? So say you put your ferrets down and there's a situation like arises like that. What do? Do you have to then dig out everything else essentially?
The ferret. If like the times we've had cats and mink and foxes and stuff, the ferrets 9 times out of 10 have just come back out. Tails bottled up, they're not going back in there. Once I had a fox bite one of my ferrets and took the eye out. But that was just a mental ferret. Very good ferret, one of my best ferrets I've ever had. Called a patch after that. I'm sure you had one. The little thing. And but generally they're a bit like us, really. If you got a intuition
kind of thing.
You just think,
I'm not gonna. That's not my fight. Kind of thing.
I mean, when you're younger, you'll go in there. And
give it a crack.
But a bit more experience, it's like that.
It's not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze, essentially. So, have you? So, like, obviously, when you first started out, what was it that got you into the this kind of life? What was it? No, just
we as I said, I born and bred in Borough, so. Mad football. Unfortunately, I've got the genetic disease of being a Borough fan. Right? You don't support them. It's genetic.
It's just instilled.
You just can't. Ups and downs, downs.
It always downs. Except the other day.
So we lived there, and my dad used to work for British Steel. And when that went in the early 80s, he said we moved to Suffolk. So. It was 1 year was great because we lived around the corner from Merson Park, so I was brilliant for going to footy. And he didn't have long to run back. And then when I moved to Suffolk when I was 14, I basically just left school at 15. And then I've always been interested in ferrets up here and nature and bird watching and wildlife and being about. When he went down there, it was like this big playground opened up because there's a big shooting area and hunting area, Sangley and stuff. Nobody had ferrets. Nobody wanted dogs. Nobody wanted too much work, too much effort. So I started, and then, as I said, it's just probably because it's one of the few things I was really good at. You didn't really go to school that much. Everybody's been there, and and then you start to work for people, and I worked, market garden, and then at a print factory. Print factory was, they wouldn't be able to do it now because I turned up. Can you imagine? You saw it like 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds from Teesside, and then you move down to a seaside town, right, with all the attractions and everything else. But at that time in our history, there was hardly anybody out there other than Suffolk people.
Yeah.
So I had to walk around with like a notepad and pen around my neck because nobody could understand me. They called me Sam for 6 months because they thought, "What's your name, Sam?" Oh, Sam, right? So
I always get Carl.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So
understand that.
So we working for people and running the dogs at night and ferret in the weekends and playing footy and then you progress on to try not to get killed when you pool hustling and football and just carried on rabbiting. And then I thought, I want to do this, So I worked for a pest control company, and but that was just like all chemicals. And then again, it was like there was a bit of the feralism in me.
Yeah.
Just couldn't work for people.
And was that rats and bees and stuff like that as well? Or,
everything. Rats, bed bugs, and cockroaches, and hardly any rabbits. And I just thought, and then I had funny enough, big fallout with them, which seems to be a pattern through my early life of like somebody tries to tell you what to do and you, nah. Nah. And they didn't like it that you just said nah. And then I was doing shows at the time, just static little displays, trying to explain what I do with ferrets, which was quite nice. And these were like game fairs and agricultural shows and stuff. And it was 2000, and I I did a little book. I sat under a tree at Burley Horse Trials, and I wrote a little book and self-published it and put it out. And I thought, I'm looking around me thinking, I quite fancy a bit of this, you know what I mean? And I knew people that were doing other stuff, and I think I'm quite fancy. Well, I got suspended from work, so I had a lot of time to think about things, and I thought, all right, I'm gonna go for it. So 2001, I decided I'm going to work for myself.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do the shows. I'm going to do the rabbits. I'm going to write. Happy days. Right. Yeah. Foot and mouth hit.
Oh, fucking hell. I do that.
Everything was cancelled.
Yeah.
Near enough. And so it just cracked on. And then the next year, once the shows found out I was doing demos in arenas, they come to me because the only other people that were doing it were like showmen.
Yeah. So
they could, but they didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And I was just like this raw and northern, and I had like just so many things going around in his head and wanting to take the world on. And then somebody turned around at me and said, you will never make a living doing this. And that was just it. So I continued to do the shows, continued to do the rabbits. It didn't pay particularly well, but it's a learning curve. And then people said, well, production companies got in touch with you about taking people out for the TV. Yeah. You're young and naive, and you want to sort of spread the word. So you agree to these things. We've had a few experiences with the F word, where we were meant to provide all the rabbits for the. Can you remember the F word?
No.
Gordon Ramsay or the F word.
No. I think possibly now that you said Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay.
I don't
know. Gordon Ramsay's.
I think I do remember.
He's a famous chef, and he swears a lot. He had a restaurant called the F word for TV.
Yeah.
And we were meant to take him and his son out and catch the rabbits and feed all the people in the hotel. Well, to cut a long story short, we breastfed, their production company, everything. To a day before we started, and then we got dropped because they were going somewhere else, and they basically caught 2 rabbits where we caught 60 odd. So they learned it quickly then and got some compensation from them because we weren't going to do it for nothing. And then when it come to the next person wanting to do it, we thought, we know what's going to happen here now. So then you meet the production company that sells the program to the telly. And the next one was like taking Mike Robinson out for Country Wise. And Mike Robinson's a fantastic game chef. He's just a venison wise, he's a champion of everything. Yeah. And it was brilliant because I knew from then that what I wanted to do and what I wouldn't want to do. So I'm not going to be made a fool of.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, this is what we'll do. And I'm saying, no, this is what we'll do. Yeah. If you don't like it, then I'm not going to do it. So we took somebody out for the one for Country Wise, apparently. a female warrener from Suffolk. She couldn't tie a shoe there. She had a twisted knee or something, you know. So I was doing all the work, and I'm thinking, and we're on an estate where we shouldn't have really have been, you know. So like we had all the gamekeepers going around us, and we've got these big TV cameras there. I'm thinking, fucking hell, I hope they don't catch us because, you know. Anyway, so that was great. And then it progresses after being up like Clarissa Dixon Wright and Jimmy Doherty a couple of times, and you just sort of get to a point where it's like they ring you up. The last time we went out for Food Unwrapped a few years ago, he said, "Right, I want to come out ferret with me." We don't normally come out with his people twice because I did Jimmy's Wood with him, where we camped in the trees and all sorts. Well, he reckons he camped in the trees, but he went to the hotel. You know what I mean? But and they said, "Yeah, I've got just a place in Essex, and we're doing the work there. There's a fair few rabbits. It was a tidy spot." And he says, "Right." So they turned up, and you got like the soundman, the cameraman, the producer, him, and you're thinking, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And we basically just set it up. Went to the pub for a meal, come back, caught, I think it was like 18, 19 rabbits in half an hour. Said, "Yep, that's it." And off they went. So once you learn how to play it, they just love it, you know. And then sometimes you're sort of telling them how to do it. I won't even be there, but I'll say, "Well, you just want to make sure." And now people that are doing it will ring me up and say, "Well, what do you reckon?" And I'll like say, "Well, do this and do that, and don't make a fool of yourself because I know what editing's like. They can make you seem what you're not." You know,
manipulation kind of.
And you got to be aware of that, like when the camera's going. So, and we were very switched on towards the end, and some of the production companies sort of didn't really like it because
you're not setting traps for yourself essentially, and tripping yourself.
You know, and the cameraman's going, "We won't put the camera on the dog," and I said, "No, we tried that." And he said, he's looking at me, and I said, "No, we tried it." I said, "I'll do it." But we tried it. Why won't it work? I said, "Well, look at the dog's head. You know, so it's all over the place." I said, "You're going to put a big gimbal on there?" And he went, "You know, fair enough." And then that's when I started filming for myself. So, you know, I've done a few books demonstrating at 35 events around the country in the arenas, and I love that. You know,
is there anywhere where you can get your books now still, or are they still out there anywhere?
Really, well, there's a few poking about. Because I self-published a couple, and I went through a publisher for my ferreting book. But I did a cookbook the other year, and they're all gone. But again, the publisher was like, "Won't do a reprint because he was just an arse." But once you sign a contract,
you said I
learned quickly that, you know, I signed a contract to do this book, and once you sign the contract, you don't realise. So
it takes us on to what I was next going to ask you anyway, Simon. It was basically, I want to know obviously about the meat itself, cooking the meat and how it's prepared and what you have it with. So, say for instance, you've got your rabbit, it's fresh, you've just killed it essentially. What goes into that then, and then how do you then get that from being from where it is now on the field to getting it on your plate?
The beauty of wild meat and wild game, and I'm amazed more people don't eat wild game, you know, especially venison, because it's not got the fat beef's got,
it's good,
you know, but and it's worthless at the minute. You can pick up shitloads of venison for next to nothing. Rabbit, more protein, less fat. Again, people they're put off by mixing and can't get them. So once I've dispatched the rabbit, I am then basically the abattoir supervisor. So what I like to do is pee it straight away, so we empty its bladder, so the urine doesn't taint the meat, and then we hang it on a game carrier until we finished.
Sorry for interrupting you. How do you do that? Like, what's the process of that? So you've got your rabbit; it's there, full fur, still on.
Basically, turn it on its back. Thumb on its diaphragm. Push down towards its bits. You'll empty the bladder. And then put it upside down on a game carrier from the legs downwards, and then we'll carry on doing what we're doing. If it's warmer, I will then paunch the rabbit quicker than I would do this time of year, because we don't want the rabbit to go off. And we paunch it because as soon as it stops breathing, all the intestines start to expand.
Yeah.
And that can contaminate the meat as well. So you paunch it, you basically sort of put your foot on its ears, pull it up to get a bit of tension, get your knife, and then everything drops down. And then put your fingers around its basic stomach and intestines and pull them out. And then you can do a proper check, because the barometer of any animal's health is his livers and kidneys. And with rabbits, you can tell straight away with his livers if there's anything right or wrong with it. Unfortunately, because they're wild animals and they're not privy to going to a vet, some of them aren't going to be suitable for human consumption. So they either go to the ferrets, the dogs, or hawks, or wherever. But it's still not wasted. It's just that you don't really want to eat them.
What's the signs you would look for in that instance then?
Well, it's signs, you know, you get worms in wild animals. So you get little clear sacs with little piece of polystyrene in. You got liver fluke, which is a little small, you know, you can see the white blotches on the liver. Basically, if the liver's not rich and burgundy, then there's something wrong with it. So, but that's a small percentage. And then they go in the back of the truck, and then they're not all just all piled in. They're like put in bread crates. So even though I don't condone theft of any sort, I think everybody that catches rabbits in the country has loads of bread trays. Because you can leave them out, lets the air circulate, because if they get too hot, again, it affects the meat. And you've got to be very careful, because as I said, you are now dealing with food, and it's a whole different ball game. And then when I get them back to sort the rabbit out, everybody's got their different ways. They like to skin it and portion it up. But basically what I do is, you've got the rabbit, it's been paunched. So I just put it on its back, on its side, make a little nick underneath the belly flap, and just pull the fur left and right over the legs. Bang, bang. So you take it off neatly, over the head, over the legs, off the neck. So you've just got left with the carcass now. And then what you do with the carcass, or what I do with the carcass, is I'm a bit fussy. I don't like stuff with bones in it. So like, you know, I'll debone everything. But they've got a line of sinew around the rabbit meat. And if you don't take that off sometimes, depending on how you cook it, it all shrivels up and go hard. So basically, I'll take the front legs off, the back legs off. The front legs are joined by a cartilage, so you just chop them straight off. They're not got a ball and socket.
You can just go straight through that.
The proper word is like sternovascular ligament, whereas the back legs are a ball and joint. So you just click them and just go through them and unhook them. And then you take the saddles off, which is the bit I like. And you basically just taking your knife down the vertebra and slip and pull it off. And then you take the sinew off the saddles like you do fillet of fish. So then you just got pure meat and pure protein. The front legs will be like a little Goujon-y Chinese sort of method, where you can just pick on a little bone. Not for me, bone. You know, life's too short for bone.
I don't mind them, mate.
But in the back legs, I take the bones out. So I just take them off at the knees and slit them, pull them over, and then go around the bone, take the bone out, take the sinew off. You just left. And I basically just, the most rabbit I eat is in like burgers, meatballs, or the saddles in like little wraps with salad. But I have got a soft spot for rabbit pies, because there's a company in Suffolk, Truly Traceable, make award-winning rabbit pies.
I'd love to try one of those.
And I catch the rabbits for them, so I know all the rabbits in their rabbit pies come from me. But you know, you eat too many pies.
So what? Sorry for interrupting. What's your preferred method of cooking them? Do you fry it? Are you doing it? Are you boiling it? Or are you in the oven?
I'm just a burger man. Just a burger. Just like, you know, it's why. You know, I suppose the best recipe I've done is just like pan fried saddles. Like a bubbling squeaker and a sort of a mustardy sauce and a bit of, you know, but. I'm always running about, so you know, it's meatballs, burgers, you know, or little nibbles, you know. But I just pan fry it, because if it's a very it can dry out a lot, and a lot of people find this with rabbit, and this is why they don't like eating it, because they remember it being cooked badly. So you've got to be careful with what parts of the rabbit you cook. because obviously the saddles have got more moisture in them than
So
the
they
back
cook
legs.
differently to the rest of the...
because of the muscles and stuff. So yeah, there's loads of ways of cooking it.
What do you normally have it with? What would you be? So say, for instance, you just said that burgers. I was just curious, is what, if you weren't having a burger, what would you kind of put alongside a rabbit? Essentially, so say, for instance, you're having steak or whatever, steak and chips or steak and veg. Or
you can have anything. I mean, nowadays, no, the way I'd cook it now, it's sort of I'd have the saddles, so quickly pan fried, so 4 or 5 minutes, let them rest, and then I just like heaps of veg. I'm like a cauliflower and broccoli monster. So there'd be like sweet potato, cauliflower, broccoli, onions, mushrooms, and I've gone from like having the worst diet in the world to like being ultra
super healthy.
I know my macros down to the gram, and the and rabbit has sort of helped that, and because it's good for protein, it's got more protein. So I eat a fair amount of protein a day.
So for your general consumer, so say everyday bloke, someone down the road, where could somebody say, for instance, as myself, it's something I would love to have and try, in different ways. Where could your average Joe kind of go to obtain some rabbit? Essentially,
well, this is the thing. It's getting hot. The old traditional butchers are the places where you get the rabbits, but the old traditional butchers are closing, and supermarkets are taking over, which is quite sad. You have game dealers, but there's not many game dealers up here. So you can order it now off the internet. It's quite an expensive meat. You can order it on the internet, which is the best way. It all comes through in little boxes, but butchers are the same. But people always used to know somebody that could get some rabbits, whereas now it's not seen as the thing to bring the younger generations up.
See, I know a lot of lads who go out with lurchers and stuff like that. So I probably get it. It's just like, when you're saying earlier about like knowing the right kind of, to know that the meat's kind of at its kind of best standard. And you were saying about mixie, like obviously I've seen rabbits with mixie. I've seen what they look like, and they've got all the like gooey eyes and they look like all frail and stuff. But like, how would you like obviously see, if you see a rabbit and you caught your rabbit, or someone's caught your rabbit, how would you then see a rabbit who maybe had early stages of mixie or wasn't 100%, as you say, fit for human consumption? How would you kind of...
You just look at the general condition of it. I mean, when you put your hands on it, if it's skin and bone, there's something wrong. You look at the eyes, bright, even if they survive mixie and they've just got scar and still perfectly well good to eat. Generally, if there's something wrong with the animal, like with mixie, they'll just be, because they can't eat properly, they'll just be skin and bone. So you can see it pretty quickly.
How does the rabbit, like, obviously I know it's myxomatosis, so how does that occur? Like, where does that come from? Is it just what it eats, or?
Mixie, the origins of mixie comes from the South Americas, and it was brought over by the European settlers. So when the settlers went over there, all their rabbits were dying, and they couldn't suss out why, because all the local rabbits were great, and it was obviously the rabbit flea. Man being man then manipulated this. So a good way of getting rid of rabbits was to obviously give them the flea. So the flea breeds on the breeding females, the blood of the breeding females, and that's how it's spread by vectors. So you got mozzies, midges, ticks, fleas. And they can spread it around, and once it goes, it can wipe rabbits out. And then they build up immunity, and then not so many die, and then the ones with immunity die, and then it starts again. So sort of every 8 years you'll get bad mixie, 10 years. But nowadays we've got new disease, PhD, and that just wipes them out in 24 hours.
So is that a big growing problem now? Is it getting bigger?
There's large tracts of the country now with very few rabbits. I mean, we're lucky up here. There's a lot of rabbits in some areas, and I always put it down to stress, because they're not stressed. If you think on the grouse moors, it's very well managed, very little predation. Rabbits come out, strut the stuff, cop off with the missus, breed some youngsters, eat more food.
The good life.
They don't see anybody. They don't see anything. Whereas you got Southern England, soon as that rabbit comes out of the hole, everything is about it.
Yeah.
And I think that stress levels affects the body and how it reacts to disease, because it's humans, if we're stressed out, we pick up colds, we pick up,
diseases
ailments.
essentially. Immune systems kind of crashes out.
And that's exactly the same. And the diseases have hit up here every year. They just bounce back. There's big, massive rabbits and they bounce back. So I think that has got a lot to do with it. But most of Britain, the east, south, and west, very few rabbits now. But the world's different. I mean, we got thermals and night vision. And you just and like you said about the lurchers, I love working with dogs, and with them you're using a lamp, so they either get them or they're done. But you're using a lamp. Whereas if you're out with a rifle and you got a thermal, you're just looking for heat sources, and it's like computer game.
So whether you're using the lurchers, obviously a lot of my friends have got lurchers. They go out lamping all the time. What's the process of that? If you're taking your lurchers out, will you leave the ferrets at home, or are you taking the ferrets out the same?
If you're out lamping at night with the dog, and it answers our most basic instinct of being a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
I mean, lamping a lurcher is just, you just can't describe it. You've got to experience it. When you're out there, you're walking, it's windy, it's drizzly, you're walking, you put the lamp on, and you're seeing your dog run the lamp, and it's a test of athletes, really. Not as good as watching your dog work daytime. Daytime lurcher work, to me anyway, pisses all over lamping. Because you can be out with a lamp, that rabbit might just sit there looking at fucking all this, and the dog comes up, picks it up, brings it back. Very good dogs. I mean, you train them to retrieve and everything else. They don't kill the rabbits; they just bring the rabbits back alive. Again, there's different levels of how you're going to do it. But in the daytime, it's for me, for ferreting. The reason I use my dogs is they tell me which warrens have got rabbits in and which haven't, which saves a lot of time. You don't pay them a wage, because they're going to marshal the nets and they'll tell me what's going on better than any person. And again, like in some places up here, I'll just bolt for fun for the dog. Still doing rabbits, but I'll just let the dog do it and the dog do it. And when you watch a good lurcher work a rabbit from marking to coursing to retrieving, time and time and time again, in inhospitable surroundings, their fitness levels and mental strength is on a different level. I mean, I got one at the minute, Tony. She's 7.5 now, and I bred her last year in the lockdown because I was doing nothing else. And I've never seen a dog so driven, and how she survived to be this age, I don't know, and she, looking at pictures and footage of her now, her eyes are just on the rabbit, not on the brick wall or the tree or the car or the person. It's just the rabbit, and which is a bad thing, really. But watching her work is sort of put into perspective out of all my other dogs. So, it's like everything else. You start with a dog, it's not the best in the world, but you love it. And then you get another one, that's a bit better. And then it's a bit better. And then, I was lucky enough to be given Tawny. I didn't look for her. I didn't want her. At the time, the missus was like, but anyway, I ain't got her now. So, do what I want. And from a pup, you could see how driven she was. And at that time, I used to come from Suffolk to up here to give her the rabbits. And time after time after time, she would just tumble, run into stuff. She knocked her tooth once into a pallet. We did another 2 days, took her to the vets, and they had to pull it out. And then she fell off the edge of a cliff and landed on some sibs and just shook her head and carried on. And there was a cameraman out with us taking pictures. She hit his legs, took him over, and she just goes like this and just carries on. She's just like, she's not indestructible, but she's just driven. And I've got a daughter of Tony. And she's just the same, but with a little bit more savviness. So, but watching them work, especially like you see them hunting the sibs and using the noses, and it's just brilliant. It's just what it should be like. But again, people, they don't see that. They just see you hunting with dogs and they've got this image of something else.
I think it's brutal.
But it's nature.
So what's your take on fox hunting, essentially? I know a lot of guys who go out and they're getting foxes and What's your take on that? I mean, obviously there's different kinds of fox hunting where you're going out with the actual like people's horses with the packs of dogs, but I know a lot of people go out lamping and get them too. Where do you stand on that one?
It's up to them.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, I'm always been a rabbit person.
Yeah.
Same for me shooting. We couldn't really get in deer stock and couldn't really get into. I mean, some of my friends mad for foxing, especially from the rifle. I mean, one of them's out 5 nights a week and he shoots about 600-700 foxes a year.
Really?
It's just, you know, and I know people that love to do it, you know, with other methods, whether it be lurchers or terriers. At the end of the day, if you're on, you know, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Yeah. It's not my thing.
What's the kind of levels in foxes then? Because I mean, obviously living next to
there's loads,
I see them all the time.
Loads in the town, loads of urban foxes. The foxes where I am is non-existent because I'm living in the middle of all managed moorland, so it's managed.
Yeah.
It's the same in Suffolk. It's just constantly managed.
It's just the levels right down, or is it at a sustained
No, it's just
level?
stable.
Yeah. That's cool.
There's more badgers
than
there is.
No. I've seen a badger one time.
There's more badgers than foxes, but badgers are protected and foxes aren't.
Yeah.
But badgers do more damage, especially like to meat, to rabbit and stuff. Because once you got a badger set in there, the rabbits all live in the badger set. It's as if they know you can't go in there. So
I couldn't believe how big a badger was. I just trained one morning, and me and a couple of the other lads who fight for the same gym as me, we just went for a drive and walked next to Durham. Yeah. And there was one just on the side of the road. It come through. It was absolutely massive. I didn't realize it was
big, like massive paws and big.
Absolutely huge. It was like
tastes like shit. I had some badger ham. Somebody made some badger ham,
like peck,
and it was awful. It was on that Jimmy's Wood thing. I did this. Fucking Herbert come round and go, I've just made some badger ham, and he got all these licenses so he could do it. And he went, "What do you reckon?" And just spat it out. So they've not even got that going for him. But yeah, it's like everything else in it. You know, everybody's different and they like different things. I mean, the Northeast is a hotbed of ferrets, dogs, and everything. It always has been, always will be. What people forget that don't know is that when all the strikes were going on, these weren't the people that were going hungry. They may have been skint, but they weren't going hungry because they had a way of getting food. And I just think it's sad that you see all the youngsters coming up now, and it's like Fortnite or this computer games. I don't want to go out. You know, they're not even playing football at school now because they get wet. You know, and that's having an effect on the countryside and everything to go with it, and the towns. Because basically, I grew up, you know, in a city, lived in a town, and whatever. You know, a lot of my friends live in towns and grew up in cities, and some of the best people I know that are hunters live in cities because they appreciate it and they were brought up to respect and to appreciate. And whereas now that respect is gone, nobody respects anybody, and there's a big divide happening, and I just find it a bit sad, you know. Which is why when we do the shows, it's a good thing because at least you can keep educating people.
And it's spreading the word essentially.
Yeah, but with COVID and the pandemic, we sort of had to change things.
That's it. I mean, it's from me being a young kid. You know, my auntie lives down Leicester in a place called Croft, and every year I would go down there and stay down there. And I always camp. It was something I always did. So even still now, all year round, winter, whatever, I'm always wild camping. I'll either take my biffy bag or my hammock or whatever, you know, and I love it, you know, and I think more people should do it. It's a rewarding thing when you're out there. It's cool, you know.
It's a big movement at the minute with bushcraft, isn't there? And you're right. More people should. I mean, I had a roof tent on my truck for years. I'm going to get another one for this one, and that was fantastic because you could just like slap it up and do what you want. But again, it's just about appreciate. You appreciate. And it's quite therapeutic, I think, as well, because it's you know,
it's out that you're stepping away from the kind of mundane, regular life,
and it, you know, especially if you're with people or even if you're on your own, or you know, you can appreciate what goes on to be what you're appreciating, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is that everything does need to be managed, and they don't appreciate I mean, you're seeing it now with with the grouse and everything else. If it wasn't for the land management, you wouldn't have, at the minute, we've got all the curlews coming in, all the grouse are breeding, got oyster catchers, you've got everything. But if it wasn't for the managed land, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a bit sad that we got people in a position like on TV where they're positioned to influence people, and they're not really telling the truth, or they've got their own agendas. Yeah, they've got their own agendas, and I just think it's a bit sad. But there's nothing we can do about it because you're pissing in the wind to it.
Exactly. It's definitely its fault. So what kind of rifles do you use? That's what I was interested. You use a 2.2 or?
I got because I only shoot rabbits, so I got me 2.2 air rifle, which is a firearms one.
Yeah,
and that kicks out 24 foot-pounds. But I can move that down to 12 and 9 if I want to. And then I've got a 1.7 HMR. I used to have a rimfire, but my air rifle can shoot 70 yards, so I don't need a rimfire.
Yeah.
And then a 1.7, which is good to like 200. So again, I can sit in a truck with a thermal and just plop away.
So what's the process then? So say, for instance, you've shot your rabbit out there. It's now got a lead pellet in it, essentially. What do you then do? How does that differ once you're cleaning the rabbit up? Do you have to, you remove the pellet? And what's the...
If you... we're always aim for headshots.
Yeah.
So then you just take
the
head
not using the head as high. That's a cool...
If you sort of go for an engine room shot, you're just going to bruise it. And you're thinking about what's happening afterwards, not what's happening now. And that's why the 1.7 HMR is taken off as a rifle that has them for years, because the increased distance, and that's what it's about at the end of the day. You've got, if you're going to do something, do it properly. We don't want to faff about with animals because, as I said, it's cruel. We're not into cruelty. We want to do stuff to the best of our ability. It doesn't always happen like that because it's life. But we strive for doing it, the best of our ability. And then you've got to know your ability and you've got to know your limits. And then, because at the end of the day, everything that we account for, we then want to move on. Because at the end of the day, it's not just financial, it's moral as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's pretty good. And then we'll just have to wait and see what happens now because of how life has changed with COVID. We'll wait and see what happens.
So what's your ambitions for the future in the rabbit and in the rabbit industry, essentially? What's your future hopes for what you do?
What I want to do is I just recently, 6 months ago, moved into where I am now. So I want to I've got to try and reconstruct a business which has been destroyed by COVID like everybody else. So last year was written off. Last year I already wrote off this year because this year was just part 2 of last year. So my mindset this year was completely different than last year. Last year was just
shooting in the dark. No one really knows what's going on.
But this year, I come into this year now, well, it's going to be the same. So just work your way around it. So I'm penning a couple of books. So I'm just rough writing. So I want to redo my cookbook, but better with proper recipes. And then do a rabbiting book, but have it not just about ferrets and ferreting and, this is this ferret and this stuff. I want to sort of through my eyes.
Yeah.
So why do I do that? Or why do you do this? And funny tales of taking people out and where we've nearly come a cropper and where we have come a cropper. And so it makes it a little bit better. Carrying on with me writing for shooting times and stuff. I want to get more rabbiting work, which is coming in around. I'm basically traveling around north of England and Scotland doing that. So when pest control companies have a particular problem, I sort of get called in for that. Generally the arsey ones that nobody else wants to do. I'll do that. And then just continue on my fitness. Last year I started running again. So I was doing a 10K every other day. I was just mad. I had nothing else to do. I was just running around. And when I moved to where I am now in the hills, the first thing I did was just put a gym in the shed.
Mhm.
So I've got I've got the shepherd doing the sheep at the minute out the back. They'll be checking the lambs, and all you'll see is his head coming across the stone wall. Because I've got me pull-up station against the stone wall. and then inside my shed is like a little multi-gym and weights and stuff. And I just want to get fitter. So I'm at the end of the day, I'm 53. So, your age ain't gonna lie from you, but I'm a fit 53, and I can
active,
active,
eating well as well. Definitely
eating fantastic, and all my mates are just fucking because I went down Suffolk doing some nighttime stuff last week on the side of a motorway. They shut the motorway down so we could go in, and they're all eating gangsters and pies and drinking coke, and I was looking at them and I asked them to do something, and they were huffing and puffing. They were out here and they were huffing and puffing, and they were like 35 and 40. I'm like 20 years older than you, and I'm like bouncing up this hill. So I'm going to continue with getting fitter. I'm going to enjoy life. I said I had a bad breakup before I come up here, and then I got hit with COVID after that. So I was wavering. Then I got hit with the pandemic. So I'll still go down and see my daughter, and my ex-missus, because we're on fairly good terms now. After I moved halfway across the country. Solicitors for you. And then just get fitter and fitter.
Nice.
I might do some little, because we did that charity stuff. I do, because I do a fair bit of stuff for mental health. I might try and get doing some little talks and stuff on it. You know what I mean?
That'd be cool.
So I've been at the gates of hell a few times, and mental health is a big thing. I mean, years ago, I used to suffer from panic attacks and anxiety. And you imagine having a panic attack going into an arena, and you got people around you. It's not nice.
It's brutal.
And that's just a lifestyle thing. So.
And obviously you've got a good method yourself of personally dealing with that, obviously using the outdoors as you kind of release. So it's good that you've got that aspect of it, and you can put that across from your own shoes, you know what I mean?
A lot of it is it. I mean, a lot of it was caffeine. A lot of it was caffeine.
That helps me.
See, the thing is, but you say you can be ferreting all day long, and we'll go out lamping, and you're flagging a bit, so cappuccino here, cappuccino. And you work, 15 cappuccinos a day, you know what I mean?
Anxiety's for the roof.
You wonder why your heart's going like this, and you want to kill everybody, and you're agitated, and you're tapping everything up. I don't drink coffee now.
So sorry for interrupting you there. So as I was just going to say, so you've got your cookery book out, or is there anywhere, or is it not published yet? It's in the works.
The old book, Ahead of the Game, that was out a couple of years ago. It sold out in 12 weeks because they only did a certain amount of copies, and they wouldn't do a reprint. So I'm going to do something slightly differently, but because of what I've learned with the macros and nutrition and everything else, that's another avenue. Promoting game is something I do, like little cooking demos and stuff, and that's quite nice. Doing all that, and you can have the crack with the crowd, and and they sort of can see that it works. So there's plenty of ways of going into, but it's all as long as I can keep doing my gym stuff, and exercises. And then crack on.
So when the books essentially come out, where will people be able to get that? Because that's something I would personally buy myself. You know what I mean? I'm interested in cooking all sorts of stuff when I'm camping and that.
Just a lot of it's on social now and advertising through social. And pardon me, I quite the power of social media can't be underestimated.
Yeah, it's massive now, especially with it.
And it'll just be through that, really, because once people know, because you got like a fair amount of following and stuff. Once people know, then people speak, the jungle drums go.
So have you got a YouTube channel or anything like that? Where you
used to, yeah.
Because I'd personally love to watch you cooking something.
A lot of my stuff is on my YouTube channel. I've not done nothing for years for it because I just get get sidetracked by stuff. I like start and then I used to do my stuff for the Shooting Times videos, and there must be about 70 films on 60, 70 films on there, something. So you can see on the Shooting Times YouTube channel. And then I've done stuff for other people, and they're on like the National Gamekeepers, and so you just put like Simon Whitehead and Ferrets in Google, and then like,
because I'll check that out myself.
It comes up, and then you'll see the dogs work, and how it all comes. But at the end when we started the filming, because I did one film and I won an award for it, and it just teaches you new life skills. And I think that's what a lot of people have got to learn and hear about, is the life skills we learn. So like, you catch rabbits, but you got to be fit. You got to know your equipment. You got to be agile, coordination, responsibility. And then you start filming, and that's that black hole that is of money going down the pan on stuff. But you learn, so you learn how to use a computer, how to edit, and then you think, and then you look at other stuff. Everything cross-pollinates. And that's what that's what I'm going to try and get across. So it's not so much just about rabbiting. Rabbiting is just a little section of what it is. And like the hats, I was wondering about the hats. I quite fancy, a proper Ferret boy hat. So who knows?
Definitely.
I'm just enjoying it. I've took all the positives from the pandemic, and like now putting them in place. So it's not bad, but the money side of it was terrible. And it still is, but everything else is sort of getting there.
Ties itself.
Hopefully, we're now booking stuff, and then get to June. We'll wait and see what happens in April. At least I can go to Yarmouth Road and get my haircut.
Aye, that's it. I'm obviously what you do is really interesting for me, and I'm sure everyone else watching it will be really, really interested in as well. I mean, as I said earlier, I've got a lot of friends who's interested in hunting.
It's just different because when you're doing stuff, and you know what it's like. You go somewhere and they go, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" How do you explain this one? And nowadays, I mean, it might be easier for you.
I think a lot of it when you see, I've been pro fighter for the last however many years. This guy's a fucking lunatic.
You're going somewhere, you're going whatever. And the thing I like about what I do is like, I've been and met some amazing people, and some people who are still in touch with are inspirations, and some right weasels as well. You know what I mean? And getting rid of them, and people who are just draining you, and just and the older I get, the more just
wise. You filter gets better for that shit.
And they keep the people who you want to, but it's just getting that. It's just getting there, and then the cross-pollination and getting it out and enjoying it. And I'm just going to smile and enjoy my life.
That's the best way, mate. As I say, mate, I'll end it there, and I really appreciate your time for coming on, Simon. As I say, if there's further down the line, if you want to come back on again, I'd love to.
I'd love to. And then when we start again in the autumn properly, you'll have to come out and see the dogs.
Mate, absolutely. I was going to ask you that off the camera anyway. If there's ever an opportunity when there's someone, a spectator or someone can join in,
because that's the bad thing. We couldn't do that last year and this year. But I take people out, and it's because there's no pressure, and then you just sit on the hill and you're cooking your rabbit in front of you.
I'd love to.
So you go out there, you catch your rabbit, you prepare it, and then you tuck it into it. Talking shit.
That's what I mean.
That's brilliant.
I'm out fishing all the time. I'm fucking bringing fish home. I brought a lobster home a couple of weeks back, and my missus is like, I brought it in. She's like, are you going to cook it? I'm like, well, 100% I'm going to cook it. And she's like, is it going to be fresh? I'm like, it's going to be fresh. I've just pulled it out of the fucking water. It's the same as you. Literally just caught it. You couldn't get it any fresher. No. It's like fucking mad. But I'd admit, I'd absolutely love to take you up on that offer and get out there sometime and get back on. And obviously when things are up and running again, especially hopefully your book's done as well, be awesome.
Well, that'll be next year. Next year. That was meant to be done right now. But it was like writing.
Gets put in the fucking sidetrack kind of thing.
Going to the gym, writing, going out with the dogs, or So I've been doing a bit, but it's all up there. But it won't take me longer. The last book took like 3 weeks. I just got on it. I was like Tommy the pinball business. I sat on a computer. I was like, on the computer. I just got it done because it's in there. I've got all the pictures. And I've got everything in place. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
I definitely will. We'll get something set up, mate, and we'll get on. But as I say, if the opportunity's ever there, mate, get us out. And I'll come out for sure.
Champion.
Thanks so much, Sam. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.